This is good. This is good. They were afraid of losing our business. So they say, do you want us to go back to the old way of doing it? Yes, I
Yes.
do. Whew.
Well, what's your business if you don't pay them?
I'm sure they spy on you. That's my guess.
They use your data to improve their
Yeah.
product.
Oh, yeah. They call it techno feudalism. All right. So Twitch has accepted the stream.
Hello, Twitch.
YouTube has accepted the stream.
Hello, YouTube. Welcome to the show.
And Facebook has accepted the stream.
Hello, Facebook.
You're, are you ready to start your show, sir?
I am ready.
All right. When the timer says on the air, you're on the air, okay?
Okay. Hello, Think Twice Radio, and welcome to another episode of Austin Audits. I'm Matthew Austin, the auditor. So, on today's show, we are going to cover a couple different topics. First, we're going to focus on the East Side Parkways Coalition and their upcoming community conversation and kind of give an update on where we stand with the Humboldt Expressway or Kensington Expressway project. Then we're going to dive into a little bit of the Common Council. Obviously, today's a Monday, so tomorrow they have a meeting. So we're going to take a look at a couple of items, including a local law that's proposed to increase the city's tax levy. Then we might get into some analysis of the Buffalo Bills. Free agency season has started, so we'll talk a little bit about some of the contracts and my thoughts, and then maybe some time for some meme coin fund at the end if we have enough time. So let's get started. So I wanted to start with the East Side Parkways. So this Saturday, March 15th. This Saturday, March 15th, the East Side Parkways Coalition is hosting a community conversation at the Delvin Grider Community Center. So we're going to be talking about a couple issues related to the recent ruling for an environmental impact statement. So topics of discussion are going to be a health impact study, a community benefits agreement, traffic studies, a whole bunch of goodies and different things that are going to need to be in the EIS. So I encourage anyone that's interested to come out to the community conversation at the Delvin Grider Community Center on Saturday and learn more about this project. I think we're in a very interesting time. Obviously, most of the project, it's really just been lawsuits and suing and waiting for judges to rule. But earlier this year, we had the Honorable Judge Kolyakovo ruled in our favor and essentially is compelling the state DOT to conduct a full environmental impact statement in order to proceed with the project. So we're kind of in this pocket of time where the judge has ruled and said that this project cannot go forward without a full environmental impact statement. And now we're kind of in this holding pattern where, right, if this is maybe a game of chess, I don't think it's checkers, but in this game of chess, right, we're just waiting for the New York State Department of Transportation. We don't really know what their next move is. I think there's a couple different moves on the chessboard for them to make. One would be, obviously, they could appeal. Maybe they feel like the ruling wasn't fair or something, it wasn't the right decision. I find that move probably, I think the ruling was right. And I think whether, you're on the East Side Parkways Coalition side or on the state DOT or neutral, just as environmental law is read, it was kind of unexplainable or inexplicable how they could develop this project without a full environmental impact statement. The other move would be that they can just, they could, I guess, halt the project, but the problem with that is the retaining walls, the actual retaining walls of the highway need to be replaced. So even if they scratched the project and, threatened to take away the money as has been threatened, the actual retaining walls need to be replaced. They need to come back with another vision because they can't continue. And then there's also another option or move they could make is actually complying with the law and doing an environmental impact statement. If they were to do that, which I think they're going to have to do that eventually. That would require them to do some more in-depth studies. So I know one of the tables, there's going to be a couple tables at this event, and each table is going to kind of have a different focus or aspect. I think the one table that I'm involved with is the actual health impact assessment. So essentially, from my understanding, a part of the EIS process is they have to more deeply study the impacts that this project will have on the health of residents on the east side. So excited for that. But yeah, so let's get a little deeper into, I can maybe speak on, the health impact assessment, which essentially is, from my understanding, like an epidemiological study. So actual studying disease, and that would require them to, one, study all the different proposed projects, and essentially, and then studying how each of those would impact the health of residents. So that will be one table. I know the traffic impacts is going to be another one, but a couple different topics. Yeah, I encourage anyone that's interested to come out this Saturday at the Delvin Grider Center and the Eastside Parkways Coalition's community conversation. So it's going to be a community conversation around several different topics related to the environmental impact statement. So a health impact study, traffic study, community development or community benefit agreement. And essentially just an opportunity for those of us that may have been watching on social media, have been following it, peripheral, to come meet not just members of the Eastside Parkways Coalition, but other residents that are interested. I think where we are in this battle, and I think it is kind of a battle, right? Where it's the people versus NISTOT or the New York State Department of Transportation. We're really in this point in time with this project where we're really pivoting the battle from a legal battle, which is lawsuits and filing lawsuits and waiting for judges. And don't get me wrong, that's still an aspect of this battle that's still ongoing. There will definitely be appeals, and I think the dots or the T's and the I's have not been dotted and crossed. So that's still ongoing, but I think we're slowly pivoting now. Now that the Eastside Parkways Coalition and the residents of the Eastside got kind of the ruling that we were hoping for, which is putting a halt on the project and getting more environmental studies to comply with the law. We're really in this pattern now where the terrain of the battle is shifting from a legal battle and really the lawyers to more of a public policy, public awareness, PR campaign, which are different, right? So I think if you're interested, I think this is a great opportunity to kind of begin to wrap your head around a lot of the complexity of the project and maybe where your individual skill set fits into the project. Because I think there's lots of different avenues where one could participate. I mean, liking things on social media is definitely helpful and sharing it with your friends, but this is a movement at this point that is, I think, gaining momentum, and every person that joins, the fight for the full restoration of the Humboldt is really brings a different skill set, and not just a different skill set, but a different perspective. So, and everybody's point of view is really valuable and can contribute. And I think that's one of the best parts about being part of this movement is it's not all one person. It's not, one person leading it, although there's a few individuals that I think they know who they are, and I think people involved know they are, that are really have been instrumental and put a lot of work unpaid into this effort. But really there's so many people contributing, and everybody's contributing in their own way, that it's really this awesome kind of movement of really feels like a people's movement in the city. And I encourage anyone that's maybe peripherally interested to come out and just learn more about the project, where we are, where we're going, and maybe how you can contribute to the future. Because I think this is really the most important long-term project that's going on right now in the city. I mean, this is an infrastructure project that's going to impact future generations. So really the future of our city is at stake here, although, some of our elected politicians don't seem to think it's a city issue and haven't taken a stance, which is concerning. But I think the wind is at our backs, and we're slowly gaining momentum against, the political power players that really tried right, rushing this project through without an environmental impact statement. And yeah, I'm really excited. So I encourage everyone to come out for the community conversation on Saturday at the Delvin Grider Center. Things will be starting around 9:30 a.m. and it's going to be a really exciting few hours of discussions. And yeah, lots of people are going to be there, and it's going to be a good event. So I encourage everyone to come out on Saturday and just support or learn more about the project, and yeah, help with our initiative and learn more. Oh yeah, this is the actual poster. So let's see. So yeah, the community conversation. It's an EIS topics workshop for routes 198 and 33. So 198 is the Scajaquada Expressway, and then the 33 is the Kensington. And ultimately, the East Side Parkway is, I think, in our vision, and actually what is our PPG plank is ultimately kind of combining these two initiatives into one, because really they're connected, right? They're two highways that connect to each other, and both of them. And I know there's been a big movement on the Scajaquada side to actually remove that highway, which really didn't have much traction until that tragedy where there was, a young child was hit by a car, and they lowered the speed limit, which was a good improvement. But I think the ultimate vision is to fully remove that. And I think kind of where we are in this fight is turning this right. And I think one of the things that scares, from my opinion, scares the people in charge is they would hate to see the Humboldt Parkway people really join hands with the Scajaquada Expressway people and demand the same thing, which is full highway removal. And I think that would really scare them, because I know there's been a lot of community efforts to essentially remove this Scajaquada. So really, if that energy, that momentum, that expertise that's been developed over years was to join forces with the Kensington, I mean, that's preaching to the choir for us on the East Side Parkways Coalition side. And really that would be a powerful movement, because I think the demographics, right? I think a lot of elected officials kind of take the stance that the Kensington, one, if it's not a city issue, that the only residents that can really have an opinion are, Humboldt Parkway residents, which is true. I think obviously the residents on Humboldt Parkway are most affected by this project. But it's really a city issue and a regional issue. And joining forces with the Scajaquada Creek, which I think tends to be, stereotypically maybe a more affluent kind of yuppie Parkside kind of more predominantly white population. On the Scajaquada side, I think that scares them too, of just having, people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, joining forces and saying the same thing, which is we want full removal. So yeah, come out the community conversation. It's an EIS topics workshop Saturday, March 15th from 9:30 a.m. to 11:45 at the Delvin Grider Community Center, which is 877 East Delvin. Yeah, come share your ideas for the restoration of Humboldt Parkway, and yeah, help build our city, because this is I think the most important issue of our generation. I don't know. I kind of refer to the Kensington as it's our Berlin Wall. So I think it's really important that obviously the Berlin Wall, we're all familiar with it, was the famous wall that divided East Berlin from West Berlin, and divided the free world from the communist side, and that really that wall ran through the city, and it was both it was both a physical wall and kind of a psychological wall as well. And I think you could make the argument that the Kensington Expressway really serves as the Berlin Wall of Buffalo, right? It divides the east side from the rest of the city. I mean, literally as a barrier, because unless you're on certain bridges or certain streets, you can't cross over. But also a psychological divide. I think to have cars running in and out of your neighborhood, all day is not a good look, and it's not good for the residents that live there. And I think also the Kensington, it's also divided our city, not just in the city, but it's divided really the city from the larger region of the suburbs. And it's really having this highway that serves commuters right through the east side, that allows commuters in the suburbs to get downtown in and out efficiently and effectively, has had a lot of economic damage. And I think it divides our city, between the cities and the suburbs, right? We have a this allows, people that live in Amherst can get to downtown Buffalo and back many times and never actually have to, you know, see the east side for themselves. They can just kind of cut through, zip through, in and out. And I know myself as someone, right, I grew up in Amherst, and I just remember growing up, whether it was going to Sabres games or going downtown, you took the Kensington. I don't know if it was ever explicitly told to me by anyone, but it was pretty apparent just living there, right, that you weren't, it was not safe to go to the east side. You weren't supposed to get off and go on the east side. And it really created this environment, at least for me personally. I think a lot of people that live in the suburbs too, of, yeah, you can, right, call yourself a Buffalonian. You can live in Buffalo, but live in Amherst and never actually have to see certain parts of the city of Buffalo. And I think, it creates a divide amongst residents, but also economically. I think if you look at our radials, and part of the EIS workshop is going to be talking about traffic studies. I think, right, when you look at radials, whether it's Broadway, Genesee, Sycamore, those were all, right, arterials and economic streets. Especially, I know Broadway was at one point the thriving business street in the city of Buffalo. And I mean, you can look at the Broadway market as we approach this Easter season. You're going to have, a market that really only one weekend a year is used. And I think that used to be a thriving hub. And right, a lot of people from the suburbs would take Broadway to get into downtown, but now with a highway on the Kensington, you can get there. So it's really had this economic impact on the radials as well, right? Stripping traffic and foot traffic, and from the east side, especially right when businesses look at where to locate, one of the indicators they look at is traffic patterns. How many cars go by? Because, right, if you're a Tim Hortons, you want an intersection with lots of cars because, cars pull in, cars go to a drive-through. So when, cars are taken off of the radial streets and into a highway, it just takes away traffic from lots of different areas. I know one of the topics at the EIS workshop is going to be specifically looking at the radials, because they have the capacity to take on more cars. And that's actually, right, when you think of this original design of the city. And the original design of the city was, and part of the Humboldt was, our Olmsted Park system. And Frederick Law Olmsted was an architect that he's most famous. He's one of the most famous, if not the most famous, American landscape architect, city designer of his time, right? One of his maybe most famous designs is Central Park in New York City. And just look at some of the property values around Central Park. And essentially he designed not just the park system, so which Humboldt Parkway was. So Humboldt Parkway, which is now the highway, was this linear parkway that connected Delaware Park to MLK Park. But not just that, he designed a whole parkway system. You could take the parkway system, Bidwell, and whatnot, all the way down to Front Park on the waterfront. And you could get around the city in a park. And part of that was also, too, the radial street design. So Buffalo's street design, this isn't like a European city that was kind of cobbled together over the centuries as people needed to, expand and didn't develop over time. It was literally, we were fortunate to have Frederick Law Olmsted actually lay out our street design. So part of the street design, and you think of City Hall in Niagara Square, that was intended to be like the civic center and the civic center point of the city, because all the radials, whether even Elmwood, Delaware, they, ultimately end at Niagara Square, and so do a lot of the, right, you can take Broadway, Sycamore, Genesee, they all point towards, and if you take those long enough, eventually they get you towards actual Niagara Square. So actually the highway, not only did it ruin our parkway system, our linear parkway around the city, it actually also then kind of took away and ruined our radials. Because if you look at, Broadway, I think is the best example of it. Used to be this thriving business corridor, and now it's really a shell of itself. I think the Goo Goo Dolls, right, they have that famous line, Broadway is dark tonight. And I think, right, it's probably a specific night, but it's also kind of alludes to the larger point of the economic decline that Broadway, like many other streets, has faced. And when you look at Broadway, right, a lot of that traffic and business, I believe, is just on new streets like Transit Road, Niagara Falls Boulevard, Miles Strip Road, in the suburbs. A lot of that development at one point would have been right in the city streets. And I think removing the highway would do a lot to bring business back into the city. So yeah, so that's the topic, and I encourage everybody to come out for the community conversation. The community conversation this Saturday. Come and give your feedback and just learn and meet a lot of the people. And there's lots of us at this point that are involved in the fight of our generation, which is to restore Humboldt Parkway fully. So if you got nothing to do, come out. And if you got something better to do, I guess listen to my next show, because I'll probably be recapping the event as well. Okay, so that's kind of the Saturday workshop and some of the Eastside Parkways Coalition updates. But I wanted to pivot now, which is somewhat related, but also Common Council related. So the Eastside Parkways Coalition, and which I'm a member of, we are actually in the process of, we've filed an item with the Buffalo Common Council for the Common Council meeting next Tuesday, March 18th. So this will appear, and I'm sure I'll be sharing this a little before, but this item, we are asking people to reach out to their council members. We want this item, while it appears on the regular meeting agenda on the 18th, we hope and we are requesting that the Common Council discuss the Kensington Expressway project and Humboldt Parkway restoration at their March 25th community development meeting. So we need people to reach out to their council members because ultimately, in order to get from the regular meeting to the council or to the community development meeting the following week, we need technically at least one member of the Common Council to raise their hand and sponsor the item to go to the Common Council community development agenda. And that's a kind of recent adaptation, but yeah, we need one council member at least to have the courage to put their hand up and say that now is the time for the community to be heard on this issue. Because one of the biggest issues that we've had is that, and this was all kind of prior to the lawsuit, because our elected officials were able to kind of hide behind the fact that it was in the courts and it was all tied up. But now our thought is that we have an actual ruling by a judge and by the court that is compelling the state DOT to do a full environmental impact statement. And now that the state needs to do further environmental studies, we think that this now is the time to have residents of the city of Buffalo to have our voices heard. To have our voices heard in the chambers. And really, this is our chambers, right? This is the Buffalo Common Council, where this is a city issue, right? It's a highway that cuts through the city of Buffalo, and we want to be heard. And I think it, right, as I was saying earlier, there's some momentum, but I think residents of the Eastside Parkways Coalition, and I think other residents too, we just want our chance to be heard. So starting Thursday, we'll have an item that we're hoping will appear on the Common Council agenda, but we're asking anyone, if you support Humboldt Parkway restoration, we're asking you to call your council member, call all the council members, but pick up the phone. Yeah, pick up the phone, make a call to your council members, and just let them know that you support the full restoration. We're not asking the council to take any massive actions, although we kind of want them to take some actions down the road. This first step, we just want them to hear about our concerns, our very valid concerns with the Humboldt, with the Kensington Expressway project, whether that's, the health of the residents, whether that's the actual economic impact, the long-term consequences. This is a really important city issue, and we want to be heard, and we want to be heard in the council chambers in front of our elected officials. I think there's many things. I think ultimately what we want the Common Council and we want the city of Buffalo to ultimately take over this project and be the lead agency on this project, just like the city of Rochester. Because right now, I think the biggest issue and something that needs to be revisited is with this project is really back at stage one, which is the scope and project objectives. And you have NISTOT, or the New York State Department of Transportation, which is the lead agency on the Kensington Expressway project. Excuse me, which is so NISTOT, they are the lead agency on this, and right, NISTOT is cars, right? They're Department of Transportation. They see everything through the lens of cars and traffic, and In the project objectives for this project is one of the main goals, right, that it is seeking to accomplish is to maintain vehicular capacity. And ultimately that is the weight that hangs around the project's neck and really constrains the Eastside Parkways Coalition, the residents of the city. It was ultimately the constraint that constrained the original forebearers of this project, the community group, which was ROC, the Restore Our Community Coalition. Right, the whole time that they were fighting, and really, I think ESP really just have like the spirit and the flame of this, full restoration, which is, burning brighter than ever now, is really due to a lot of the efforts of the Restore Our Community Coalition, who really maintained, the flame when the idea of fully restoring Humboldt Parkway was a pipe dream, and a pipe dream at best. And I remember being at 60 Headley Place, maybe in 2015, 16, they had this model of the cap in the Kensington. And at that point, it really did seem like this outrageous, ridiculous thing that it would never happen. And we really do stand on the shoulders of giants. We're so fortunate to be in the situation where we can even, have a shot at fully restoring the Humboldt, because we had members of Restore Our Community Coalition that were doing really the same work and hard work when this was far off and was an impossible dream. So yeah, we just want to be heard, and we're asking anyone that supports full restoration to reach out to their council members and just pick up a phone and call your council member, call a council member, just tell them that you'd like to hear them discuss full restoration of Humboldt Parkway at the March 25th community development meeting. Because like I said, we need one council member. We need a profile and courage, as I think John F. Kennedy would say, but we need a profile and courage, and we need one council member to just raise up their hand and say, I'd like to hear the residents be heard. Because I think it's enough of ignoring us, enough of, pretending that it isn't a city project. We really just want to be heard, and we want to have our day in front of our elected officials and in our council chambers. Really we want an opportunity to inform this issue, and we really only get to do this once. So encourage everyone, and I'll share some more information on the item once it's public on Thursday. We're just asking everyone and anyone that's interested in seeing the full restoration to call their council member and ask them to move our item from the regular meeting to the community development meeting on the 25th. Thank you for those that end up doing it, and hopefully we can get this on the council agenda, because I think it's now's the time. Now's the time to do it, because we're having a new EIS come down the pipeline, and we really want to be informed, and we want our elected officials at the local level to be informed as well. So that's enough EIS stuff. I want to maybe talk a little bit about the Common Council. So obviously with Austin Audits, tomorrow is let me see this. Technical issues, because this is not on my screen here. But I guess I wanted to look at some of the items, and I guess I'm going to have to not use... let's see if I can... Yeah, my screen is not registering here. So... Okay, so I guess... let's see. I'll do this one over here. Technical issues. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about an item that's on the Common Council agenda for tomorrow. So I think item 25-379, which is the construction of a new police training facility in 2025. So I know I've seen some activists call this a cop city, but it's concerning to me, especially I've maybe said this in the past, that we're like a cop town with a parking problem. But I think it's just another example of just the culture of policing in our city. And I think, especially with the budget coming up, we spend almost a quarter of our budget just on the police department, which, right, police are needed, obviously, in any civil society. But at the same time, we just don't have the resources to continue to fund policing. So essentially, this is a bond resolution for the construction of a new police training and shooting range facility. So it looks like the Common Council, they're taking out a bond to essentially develop a new police training shooting range at 379 Paderewski Drive. And this is, I think the Matt Urban Center is there currently, but it's right by the terminal. So essentially this resolution, which is signed by Mitchell Nowakowski, who's the Fillmore Council member and the finance chair, essentially it looks like the project is a cost of $3.9 million. Essentially this resolution, it says, whereas the Common Council has therefore adopted a bond resolution in the amount of $1.1 million from February 2019, a bond resolution in the amount of $400,000 dated February 2020, and a bond resolution of $1.8 dated February 2022, and a bond resolution of the amount of $535 million February 2023, for the purpose of financing the construction of a new police training shooting range facility on Seneca Street, and the city has therefore issued debt in the aggregate amount of $3.9 million. So essentially, looks like the city's taking out more money to construct a shooting range or a training facility for the police, which this address right at 379 Paderewski is like right in the heart of the east side, right by the terminal. And it's just concerning. One, I don't understand, right? I'm not a police, so why the police need a new police training shooting range facility, especially to locate this. I mean, this 379 Paderewski is in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and I think it's concerning for as a location just because it's right. I think a lot of the East Side residents, I don't know if many of them know, but if they were aware that a new police training shooting facility was coming right in their neighborhood, just it's concerning, and I just think it's just another exhibit, right? Whether it was the city's Buffalo police reform agenda, whether it was the SAS Institute project, which was a $2.2 million waste of money, the data miner contract, the police department running $44 million in overtime costs. Just another example of just the city of Buffalo, the culture of policing. And right, I don't think there's going to be much pushback from any of the council members when they take up this resolution. But just another example of, right, we're always told the city has no money, right? We have potholes everywhere. We never have any money for anything. But when it comes to policing, there's a blank check. We always have money to fund a new police pet project, whether that's a new data analytics contract, police overtime. I don't know if there's any actual evidence that more police makes it safer. And I think, I don't know, I don't know how this, especially right, we're facing this fiscal cliff, how we have money for a new police training facility, because ultimately, right, there's no solutions. There's only trade-offs. So because we spend almost $4 million on this new police shooting training facility, right, that's $4 million that can't be spent somewhere else because we don't have unlimited resources. I would love to see a philosophy shift. I know I personally would love to see the police department take on, I think the acronym is CPTED, or Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. But I would love to see, right, could you turn the police force into like a building force instead of an occupying force? And one example might be, right, we have a massive lead pipe problems, right, in our houses. And I think there's actual data that shows that, children in areas that get lead poisoning, that actually correlates then down to the road. Those become adults, and because of the harm to the brain development, actually experience higher crime rates. So I think there's actually some data and research that lead poisoning of communities is actually correlated with higher crime. So that's one example, right? If lead poisoning in a water supply is correlated with higher crime, could you then use the police force as like a way to help? Could they help then replace lead pipelines if there's a philosophy of crime prevention through environmental design? I don't know. I think we're in this tough place where yeah, we just need to start thinking of new ways. What policing looks like. Especially one of the things that's concerning is that I was at the Eastside Community Forum, and there's a police fire officer, and he was just saying that a lot of the police officers deal with trauma, which I can imagine. I think police officers are probably exposed to a lot of really grotesque and obscene and traumatizing experiences. How could you? It's kind of similar to like the recent parole officer strike. If you have this situation where right, prisoners and then also the parole officers are both being traumatized at the same time. So we have this system that's taking up lots of resources and really not causing anyone positive. Everyone's getting traumatized, and I fear that. Especially police officers. I mean, one, they become a financial liability because they have these pensions that they get after. So actually, I mean, one, they get pensions. So once they retire, there's still a financial cost to the city. Two, police officers don't carry any insurance. So as we saw recently, a police officer ran over and made a woman a paraplegic, and then the city's on the hook for $43 million. So actually the police, there's many, and I can rattle off many lawsuits against the city because of police officers. So they're not only a financial liability, but then if their job, right, and what we're asking them to do because of the policies and procedures of the city is then causing them trauma because, I don't know, because they're experiencing things and seeing things that are traumatizing. So we're having a negative impact on their mental health. It's kind of like a lose-lose-lose situation for everybody. And I wonder if there's a newer, a better way or a different way to do things so that, one, that police officers were, a financial resource and were contributing positively to the city's bottom line, but also, is there a way that police officers could be used to not inflict trauma on the population and also not inflict trauma on themselves? I know one of the things I've processed is my own trauma that was inflicted on me when they sent the police to my house on Christmas Eve to inspect my mental health. And I think that's something I'm still processing and maybe gotten better to, but just the trauma that interaction caused with me. I mean, it's once it happens to you, you can't really unsee it or unlearn it. And I think I'm just one example, but there's many examples of interactions residents have had, especially residents of color. I think a lot of them live in fear just because of the general culture and climate of policing. So that's the bond resolution. There's also another item here. So essentially, item 25-436, local law introductory number 2, amend Article 28, taxes and assessment. So this was a local law that's been put forward, and the council rarely actually does laws like this, but I think this one's important too. So let me open it up here. So essentially this is amending Article 28, taxes and assessments. So long story short, it looks like what the Common Council is doing here is kind of authorizing the ability to increase the tax levy above what New York State allows. So I think New York State puts like a 2% cap on how much you can increase a tax levy. And a tax levy, for those of you that don't know, long story short, essentially the city gets revenue from many sources. So I think the number one source of the state or the city of Buffalo's budget is actual state funding. So the city of Buffalo gets New York State AIM funding, assistance of something municipalities, but it's the number one revenue source of the city of Buffalo budget is state funding. Then we also get, some federal funding, but essentially the gap. So whatever the gap is between, the city's operating budget or the expenses and revenue such as federal, state, is made up through the tax levy. So, which is essentially just the tax base. So, right, obviously homeowners, every property is assessed, and based on the assessment of, your property relative to the entire city's assessment, then there's a tax levy. So the gap between, the operating expenses and what the city gets from, state, federal, other sources, there's a gap. And that gap is the tax levy. So the tax levy is the amount that helps get the city's budget balanced in theory. And I think there's some New York State law that that doesn't allow municipalities to like increase the tax levy by more than, I think it's 2%. So essentially what the Common Council is doing here is they're authorizing the ability to increase that tax levy more than 2%. Now, why would they do that? Why? Really, the reason they're doing that is because they want to raise taxes now more than 2%. So I think it's important to read some of this language just to give some thought. So they have the city of Buffalo is currently facing a structural financial deficit that will require remedy through several measures. These measures must include immediate and long-term revenue generation, coupled with cutting expenditures where feasible. This local law affirms a commitment to using any and all tools at the disposal of the executive department in order to present a balanced and transparent budget for the upcoming fiscal year to the Common Council. It must be noted that the City of Buffalo's tax levy remained largely unchanged between 2007 and 2022, and even saw a decrease between 2009 and 2018. At the same time, inflation has increased by approximately 32% over the past 10 years. During this time, the city was reluctant to raise taxes and costs of basic operations and services outpaced revenues at a ratio of 2 to 1. Given existing economic challenges, historical financial considerations, and the uncertainty of state and federal resources in the near future, the city must retain the option to exceed the New York State determined 2% tax levy increase in the upcoming fiscal year. So, what they're saying there, and right, they're basically saying that they want to raise taxes more than the allowed 2% of the tax levy, because, right, it's kind of funny because they're referring to like the city as almost the third person, like the city hasn't done this. Well, they are the city, right? When they say that, the tax levy didn't increase for almost 10 years, really they're saying that the city, didn't increase taxes, but really the Common Council are the people that approved the budget. So there was over a decade where all or any of them, and they're not all the same, right? We had some more recent council members, but we also have council members that have been there the entire time. So this is a long-standing thing. If they've been kicking the can, and now we'll see. I'm scared for homeowners and renters because I feel like this tax levy is going to be pretty shocking. Especially, I think the language there where they said, cutting expenditures where feasible. So really, you can just see the general culture. The appetite is to, generate revenues and really not look at cutting costs. So it's concerning because, essentially what this does is essentially allows the Common Council, and I don't know if there's a limit to how much, but it allows them to increase the tax levy more than 2%, which they are almost certainly going to do. How much they raise it by, that's yet to be seen. But I'm just concerned that the tax levy is going to be increased because essentially the general culture there is, this is a revenue problem. I think you've seen the acting mayor say that himself. This is not a cost issue. While the city might have, multiple clerks on the payroll, I think one of the things that I saw at the East Side Forum was Councilmember Wyatt alluded that there might be employees of the Department of Permanent Inspections that aren't showing up to work. So I'm curious of, how many employees, how many 50-50 jobs are there? How many employees are not showing up to work and collecting a paycheck? But just there's general not a culture there of looking at cutting costs. Because essentially cutting costs means that, you're kind of lessening the trough of which they're all at. So that's, I think, another local law, and I think that'll be interesting to see tomorrow, because essentially it gives the executive department and the Common Council the ability to raise our tax. And I'm not sure, I'm assuming that the 2% levy is there to prevent towns from kind of doing these radical tax increases. I think that's one of the most disappointing things is, I think we could all handle a 2% increase year over year because you kind of know, okay, 2% is moderate. But what's really going to hurt this year is you're going to have, who knows? I think, you're going to have, these radical sharp upticks. And I think that hurts working class, poor people, older people that are on fixed incomes, right? If you're just asked to take a 20% increase on your taxes when you weren't expecting that, that's much more painful than, a 2% increase that is coming every year. And I think that's one of the, especially with the reassessment, they just did the reassessment. So you're going to have certain people whose, assessment doubled, and then the tax rate percentage is also perhaps as high as 10% or potentially even more. So you're going to see, I think it's going to affect poor, working class, and fixed income people who are just going to be asked to eat a massive increase because they don't want to cut costs, or because it's concerning, and definitely going to be one of the most it's going to be one of the most tragic or sad things that's going to happen. Is you're going to have lots of people that are going to learn for the first time that their tax and user fee and sewer and water are all going to go up, in addition to everything else that's going up. So just another thing that working class people are going to be asked to kind of just eat. It's not going to taste good. So I think that's the most important items on tomorrow's agenda. So the tax levy increase proposed, and then also a bond to fund a new police shooting range at on the east side by the central terminal. So I got about 15 minutes here, so I think I wanted to talk. I'll do a little bit of Buffalo Bills analysis. I think today is the first day of the free NFL free agency, so I think it's an exciting time. I think one of the things that as a football fan and sports fans, the one thing that the NFL is so good at is just making their season, right? They only play 17 games, but their season is really year round, because once the season ends and the Super Bowl ends, it's the NFL Combine, then the free agency, then the draft, and then training camp, and it's never ending. So it's kind of the circus, right? And I think bread and circuses. The circus gets a bad rap, but it's part of life, right? We need bread, but we also need circuses to entertain ourselves. And in the modern era, that's football. So I think, as a Bills fan, I think recently what happened was you had Big Baller Bean, the general manager, redid a couple contracts, and started with Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard, Greg Rousseau. Who else am I missing? I think that was, then Josh Allen, I think, which is the big one. So let me start. And all those, I guess, the general consensus just seems they all seem very reasonable, team friendly, but also, they all just seemed like very fair contracts, especially when you get into free agency. I think one of the things you see in free agency is just massive overpays, right? You have teams with lots of cap space that have needs, and then you have players coming to the market, and a lot of times they get overpaid because of supply and demand, right? If you have teams with lots of cap space that are struggling, especially poorly run franchises, they just kind of, send the book at players that are good, but really overpay for lots of players. So I think one of the things that just seemed really good, because whether it was Khalil Shaquille, Bernard, or Greg Rousseau, they all got paid good money. I think like the Greg Rousseau contract is about $20 million a year, which is, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money, but defensive ends are one of the most expensive positions. So when you really looked at other contracts, whether it's the Max Crosby contract, who's a defensive end for the Raiders, and I think he got like 30 million plus, and then Myles Garrett, who's obviously one of the best in the game, he got 40 million a year. I think Greg Rousseau at 20 million, especially, he's a younger player, still has room to grow and develop, and I don't know if he's reached his ceiling yet. I think that's a good bargain. So all of them, whether it's Bernard, Shakir, I don't think there was any massive overpays. It was really just paying guys, around where they're worth. All seemed to slightly under what they might receive on the open market, especially when it's just them and their contracts haven't fully expired yet, negotiating with the Bills. And I think it's just more good positive signs of the culture they're building at One's Bills Drive, where the philosophy of drafting, develop, and then signing your guys, I think, is really good for the overall culture of the building, right? It just inspires any new guy, any rookie that gets drafted. They can see, hey, if I work hard and I produce, I'm gonna get paid. And I think that's it's awesome for the culture of the building, and especially I think just helps the overall culture. So I don't think any of those contracts broke the bank. And I think all those guys potentially could have got more if they had gone to the open market, because somebody probably would have overpaid for them. And then obviously the Josh Allen contract, that obviously was, record breaking. I think the Allen contract, it's reported he's getting $250 million guaranteed, which is an NFL record. It's $20 million more than the Deshaun Watson contract, so that's a lot of money there. But at least what it looks like Bean did was they kind of gave Josh Allen a lot of guaranteed money, but then they kept his cap hit at around $55 million, which is a lot, but is not record breaking. There's actually some quarterbacks that make less, and just another one. Obviously, too, he just won the MVP. If there's one player that it's worth paying, right, the going rate, and that it is what it is a going rate for quarterback. I think Allen deserves it, especially, right, he's kind of the centerpiece of the franchise, and he's stuck with the Bills through 2030. So I think it's just a good roster building. I think you got to retain the guys that we had, especially with as much success we've had. And yeah, I think there's a couple more players, James Cook, the running back, and Christian Benford, the cornerback, especially cornerback. That's a premium position. So I don't know if the Bills are going to be willing to pay Benford because the going rate for a cornerback. But we'll see. I think at least retaining those core guys is really a good move. And I think Brandon Beane, he's really good at getting contracts that are reasonable, and getting guys in at least for the most part. Then the Bills also did dip into the free agency pool today, and we signed Josh Palmer, who's a receiver from the Chargers. It's reported that he's getting $18 million guaranteed, and it's a 3-year deal with, I think, a $12 million a year cap hit. And I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't watch tape. I don't know who Josh Palmer is. I guess my initial reaction is that I was a little disappointed because I don't think, especially Josh Palmer, I don't know, maybe he fits our offense great, but it just seems like, the Bills are, especially Curtis Samuel too, right? We just kind of signed these mid-level free agents, and what I really would like to see was us get like an elite number one somewhere, because I think that's what we're missing. I think all our receivers are pretty good, but I don't think we need another, pretty good receiver. I think we need, an elite number one, but those guys don't grow on trees, so they're hard to get at the same time. And I think I would have loved to see us invest in an elite defensive lineman somewhere. So we'll see. We're not done yet, and obviously I'm just a fan. So I'm just a guy with a microphone and a talking head on the internet. So we'll see. I guess I'm not going to complain too much. But I guess the next big move too is the draft, right? I think the Bills were set up good. We've got a late first round pick, but then also 2 late second round picks. So we have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, and I'd really love to see us get some young talent on this team, especially on a cost controlled contract, especially when you're paying Josh Allen, even though he deserves it, that's $55 million, almost 20% of the cap. And really the big issue with the Bills, I think, has just been our inability to consistently hit on high-end draft picks, whether it's first and second round. You need those guys. You need to hit on them, and also they need to be elite, good players, especially if you're going to compete for a Super Bowl, because those are big, especially a first-round pick. You keep them on a cost-controlled contract for 5 years. So, for example, if you pick a defensive end in the first round, and he's an elite player, you get that guy for essentially 5 years below what his market value is. Because right, if Myles Garrett is making $40 million a year, I don't even think first round picks make $40 million over 5 years. So you're really getting bargains. And I think we just haven't done a good enough hitting on high draft picks. I think that's kind of been why we haven't been able to get over the hump. And I think we've done great drafting middle round guys. So like when you look at Bernard and Shakir, who we drafted and then retained, those are middle level guys. But I think there's a difference between a first round guy, their ceiling, and I think Greg Russo, even him, he obviously got re-signed, but I think there's still more room for him to be an elite edge player. So we'll see. We haven't really brought in any massive, but I have faith in Big Baller Bean. I think all these restructurings, I think he's just creating cap room to do something massive, major, right? When you have 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, we'll see. I think right, and we cut Von Miller, which is the other one, which I think you could see another Von Miller type move somewhere. I don't know if that's the defensive line, but I think we're going to bring in an elite player somewhere, and we'll see. We'll see what Brandon Beane, Big Baller Bean, is doing and what he decides to do. But yeah, I think that's all we can do, and I think so far I don't think there's but just been a lot of reasonable transactions. So we'll see. The off season is just getting started, and obviously we have the draft in the next month. So we'll see how that how that goes, and how the off season is just getting started. And I think for all the fantasy and armchair GMs, this is an exciting time just to because this is where the champions are made, is in the off season, bringing in guys. So we'll see. So that's a Buffalo Bills analysis, and I think with the last 5 minutes here, I wanted to turn to crypto. I think it's time to do another crypto segment. So I think I wanted to talk about meme coins. So I think meme coins is a thing in crypto, and I think the hardest thing when you're explaining crypto is that it's a term, and it's a good term. It technically means or references cryptocurrency, and cryptocurrency is just cryptographic currency. Cryptography is a branch of mathematics, and essentially cryptocurrency is just mathematical money. So crypto it's a term, but it's also there's lots of nuance to that. And I think the first when you're getting crypto, the first thing to understand is there's Bitcoin and there's everything else. I think that's a good place to start. So Bitcoin is obviously the OG. It's the first crypto, and it was really the invention of blockchain, and cryptocurrency was Bitcoin. And that's kind of its own separate thing. And it really, I think at this point, has proven its role as a digital gold, and really it's internet money, and it's digital gold. I think is the best way to think about it. It's scarce. It's internet money, and it's digital. It's the first invention of digital scarcity. So there's only 21 million Bitcoins, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins due to the math around it. So that's kind of the first part. When you think of crypto, there's Bitcoin and there's everything else. So in that everything else, there's the most popular ones are Ethereum, Solana. Then there's kind of a range of stable coins, which are coins that are trying to peg themselves to the dollar, or kind of provides stability. So they're kind of pegged to like a $1 per coin. There's all other ones. There's Ripple. There's other things, but part of the time I wanted to spend on the last few minutes of the show are on meme coins. So what is a meme coin? So a meme is I think a meme is kind of it's a internet joke, right? So I think we're familiar with memes, and I think memes are kind of this new language of the internet, right? I think there's the saying that a picture says 1,000 words, and I think a good meme says like 10,000 words, right? Memes are really ways to simply convey complex ideas. So what's a meme coin? So essentially a meme coin is kind of taking this idea of a joke and applying it to cryptocurrency. So I think the most famous one is Dogecoin, which essentially was started by this guy who just kind of made a joke coin about Dogecoin, like a dog coin. And the meme of a Doge ended up taking off and becoming popular. And even today it's what is it here? It's the number 9 cryptocurrency in the entire world. So it's kind of this weird phenomenon of like a meme coin it's like a joke, right? I think if you went to any academic in an ivory tower and try to explain a meme coin to them, they would literally laugh at you or like not take you seriously. Which is, I get that. It's it's not a serious subject, but at the same time, right? A Dogecoin is the number 9 current cryptocurrency in the world, which is right. Try explaining that with academics and peer-reviewed journals. You really just can't. But it's reality. It's the true thing. I think just the general meme coin. What you're starting to see here is now, especially meme coins and internet culture is starting to become a thing. I think you kind of saw this during, I think it's the Wall Street Bets, or during the pandemic when they actually pumped up, was it AMC or stock? But this idea that a community that believes in a meme, or a community that believes in an idea can create value is kind of a newer concept. And I think even I was talking about the NFL today, or like a little earlier about the Bills. But when you think of, I think a sports team is a good example, right? Say you're a Bills fan, like you are a passionate Bills fan, you add value to the Bills. You don't own it, right? Because it's a centralized owned thing. But just think of every Bills fan is a fan. They contribute to the network of the Buffalo Bills. They're fans, and because they're fans and so passionate, about their team, they add value to the overall network. And I think, but the kind of the paradigm we face with the old legacy model is, right, individuals that support a network, whether it's, through laughing at a meme or through, being a fan, they don't really get true ownership of that network, even though they're able to contribute value to the network. And really, I think meme coins it's similar to that of, right, if you believe in a meme, if you pump that meme up or get more people to believe in it, you're adding value to the network. And with meme coins, because you can now own little bits of the network, you can actually kind of get some of the value that you provide as a fan. And I think one of the things you might see through this meme coin technology or through blockchain is you could imagine a situation where, you're able to buy a small token or a small bit of a sports team that you're a fan of, which just aren't possible now through traditional means because we need one centralized owner that owns everything. But why am I not allowed to buy 0.000001% of the bills? It might be $2, but maybe that's all I got. And I think through blockchain and through kind of, the technology behind meme coins, you could see a future where people that are fans of a meme or a team are able to hold really small amounts of actual equity in the meme or the team they believe in. So that's where I'll end it today with some kind of rambling meme coin thoughts. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, Austin Audits is fading to blackness.